Hey everyone, my name is Darby and I work in Incubation Engineering at GitLab. Today is November 8th, 2021, and this is the DevOps for Mobile Apps demo. So as always, we've got an issue here that I've created for this demo, and I'll link this issue in the description of this video below. The start of this issue is same as always. We have a section here that links to our handbook page talking about our mission, which is about improving the experience for developers building mobile apps on GitLab. So there's the handbook page here, and then the weekly demos issue here. So this is going to be all of the demos that we've done each week for this project. So then we'll go ahead and jump right into the demo for this week. We've been working on code signing and beta releases using Fastlane. So last week we did the iOS pipeline, and this week was the Android pipeline. So we've got both of them working now. They work pretty well. I've got a screenshot here of the whole build pipeline, and so this is what's going to run on the master branch. That's how it's configured right now. So we'll build and we'll build Android and iOS, then we'll run our tests, and then we'll deploy to the Android beta and the iOS beta. As a reminder, this project is using Fastlane, this project is using Flutter. So this is a cross-platform tool. So in the case of what we would be doing here, we're actually only running one test build right now because it's just testing the Flutter code and not actually the specific Android and iOS code bases. So that's why it's set up this way, but in the future we might break that out. We might do it a little differently, but that was kind of the setup for this time. So down here I've got a link to the merge request where we set up the Android pipeline, and then just an example of the running pipeline as well. And then right below this here, I kind of put this table in here to kind of map the concepts between the two platforms together. So last week on the iOS build, we talked about using Fastlane Match and the App Store Connect API. So Fastlane Match is the tool that's going to get the certificates that you're going to use to sign your code, and then the App Store Connect is what's actually going to authenticate the account, which will then upload that app to the App Store. So in Android world, it's a little bit different. There isn't really the equivalent of Fastlane Match for Android. I did some digging, and there's a lot of discussions around it. I think there are some third-party plugins for Fastlane that maybe makes this a little bit easier, but out of the box, it's sort of a roll your own kind of situation. There's a key store file that you use to kind of do the same thing that the Fastlane Match was doing for iOS, and then you use a service account instead of an API configuration for actually uploading the app. Kind of really doing the same things in both places, just slightly different mechanisms for those. So then below here, I've got some details on how these work and how I got them set up. So the first part here is about the Android app signing. And so the first thing that we had to do is generate an upload key and a key store. And so this creates a Java key store file. And then you upload that to the Play Store, and then you use that key store file when you're building your app, so that they're signed, and the Play Store can read the signed code that you're sending it when you do the upload. So basically, what we do is in these documents here, there's an example of building or generating the key store through the Android Studio UI, and then this link on the Flutter site actually shows you a way to do it through the command line. So there's a couple different ways to do that. And what you get when you're done doing that is you have this .jks file, and then a few pieces of information that you can set as environment variables. And so what I did here is I set these in the CI/CD variables in GitLab, and then I also set them in my .env file locally so that I could build it locally if I wanted to. And basically the way this breaks down, there's two passwords. There's one for the key store file itself, and then one for the specific password within that key store file, or the specific key within that key store file that you want to access. And then that key is going to have a name. In this case, we called it upload. And then there's actually a path to the file on disk. So in this case, this is where we decided to put it. And then The second part of this is just configuring Gradle to actually use these environment variables when it does its build. So I just put an example here, and I've linked to the file in the project. So you can set all these environment variables in GitLab, and then the other part of it is actually uploading that key store file. Because we're not using Match in the same way that we're using it for iOS, we don't have a Git project to put that data in, so we're just going to put it in an environment variable. I linked to an open issue in GitLab about this. Right now there's no support for binary files as environment variables or as CI/CD variables. And so kind of the workaround here is just to base64 encode the contents of that file and then put it into an environment variable as plain text. So that's what I've done here. So I do a base64 encode and then assign it here. And then in the build script, we're actually just going to decode that and then write it to the file in the runner. And you'll see that where I do that in the example below. So that gets us our code signing part of this. So then the next part is actually connecting to the Play Store, and that gets done through this service account. So there's some documentation here on how to set up that account. It's in the collect your Google credentials section of this Fastlane document. But once you do that, Google will give you a JSON file which contains a signature and then a couple other various pieces of configuration. And you just need to set that in the app file, in the Fastlane app file. So that tells Fastlane to use this service account file when it does its upload. There's a handy command too to check that, to make sure that it works. So you can just run Fastlane run validate Play Store JSON key and give it the key file, and then that'll test it. It'll test the connection to the Play Store and see if it works. So that's kind of nice to double check things. And then I basically use the same methodology as above to put this in as a CI/CD variable. So taking base64, encoding that file, and then putting it in as a variable. I could do this without that. However, the masking functionality wouldn't work in that case because of some special characters within that file. So I decided to play it safe and just base64 encode that as well. So what this all looks like is this is the CI YAML file. So what we're doing here, some simple steps: bundle, install, flutter, pub, get. So this is just pulling our dependencies, and then we go in and we echo those two files out. Base64 decode them and echo them out to the file system. And then we just run flutter build app bundle, and that's going to build our app with that key store file. And then when we do Fastlane Android beta, this is going to call the Fastlane file, which is going to upload the app to the Play Store. So this command here is then calling down in our fast file to upload to Play Store. And there's a track that we give it. So it can be internal, and then there's like several other variations on beta tracks that you can have. And so we just went with internal for this one, but it could be any variation on those. The versioning here, we did this last week too. So we're using a Flutter plugin to auto-generate the versions. And here we're just specifying the versions within the upload command. So there's a version code and a version name, and they're different inputs for that. And then this is just the app bundle file. So this was generated from the command up here. And so we just give it the path to that file and tell it upload this to the Play Store. So it's pretty straightforward. In this case, we were using a lot more Fastlane functionality for the iOS build. In this one, we're literally just using this one command, upload to Play Store. So it's a little bit simpler this time. So that's it. That's basically what it takes to sign this app and upload it. And I've tested this. It goes through the process. It deploys out to the beta testers on their phones, and everything works. So that was good to see. There's a few other pieces of information I just captured here. One problem I ran into, which I thought was pretty interesting, is the upload key store file that I generated was generated on my machine, and it was a slightly different version of Java than was on the default Docker image that I was using to run the deploy, and it gave me this error. So no such algorithm exception. I dug into this a little bit and found out that it was really like a version discrepancy in Java, and it wasn't a major version. It wasn't like Java 9 to 11 or something. It was minor version numbers within Java 11 that I was running into. So I fought with this a little bit and decided to just go ahead and create my own image and push it to our registry and just use that, because that was the simplest fix. So I put a few notes in here about what I did, and then I linked to the build script that I used, the Docker image build that I used for this, which I borrowed a bit from, where did that link go? From this blog post here. So that was just kind of the workaround. I don't think that's ideal. I kind of want to dig into that a little bit more and see how big of a problem that really is, but that got around the problem that I ran into. And I've kind of seen this before too, so I also spent a little bit of time digging into something called Nix. Nix is another way to sort of build Docker images in, I guess, maybe a more declarative way. I spent a little bit of time on this and ultimately decided that it was just a little too complex and maybe too big to take on right now. It's a very interesting project, but I don't think that's the right path to go for this, but it was interesting to look into it anyway. And then I also captured a couple other links here for just Android and Fastlane setup. And there was a blog post series that someone wrote about setting up Android with Fastlane on GitLab. So there's some interesting information there too. So that's the bulk of it for this week. There's a couple things I've got on my plate for next week. I'm looking at improving the iOS efficiency. This was something kind of carried over from last week. I don't think this will be too much effort, but just clean that up a little bit. And then talking with some folks on the runner team about there's a dependency I'd like to upgrade in the macOS shared runner. So I want to see if I can contribute that over there. And then I want to take a step back and then look at some ways that we can improve the overall simplicity of the process of app signing and releasing with GitLab on Fastlane. So if there's some ways that we can create some automations or just some kind of simplified, I guess, CI configurations that we could just use that someone could take and get started quickly, I think that would be really interesting. So I'm going to take a step back and kind of look at that from a broader perspective. So that's all I got for this time. Thanks for watching.